Hey, good evening, Gwinnett County. This is President Edward Paul, joined by Second Vice President John Cox. We're pretty much here to get an update on the branch and address some of the issues happening in and around Gwinnett County. First off, I want to give sincere condolences to Kadir and Nazir Lewis family. It was a very tragic hearing they're losing their life and become early ancestors the way they have. We're hoping for a full investigation by GBI. We have been contacted by some of the family members to look into this matter. And so both our local branch as well as the state and national office will be monitoring this situation very closely. And again, there can't be no justice in this situation because those young men lost their lives and they can't get that back. So the only thing the family can hope for and we can hope for as a community that there's some type of retribution by having a full investigation and everything thoroughly checked, because there's a lot of things that so far information we've received and some of the information that is out there in the public that doesn't quite add up with their deaths. And so we're hoping that law enforcement definitely take their time and look into this issue for sure. At a time like this, I wish that we still had a Kristen Clark at the Justice Department, because we know her office definitely would have stepped in and definitely looked into this case very thoroughly. But as we know, always elections do have consequences. And this is just another reason, we never should give up any tools that we got in the toolbox to fight for our liberation. And that we should always use one of those tools, which is the easy one to use, is to go and vote for people that are putting people in place that are fighting things like what we've seen happen with these two young men when these type of tragic incidents happen in weird places where people have never been before. This is why it's important to have people in place that are putting other people in place to fight for us. That being said, want to also talk about some other housekeeping things as far as different events our organization has going on. April 10th will be 53 years we've been in Gwinnett County. So at the Gwinnett Justice and Administration Building off of Langley Drive in the auditorium, we will have our Founders Day event at 7:00. So definitely please come out and support us there. We have our Freedom Fund banquet, which will be at the Beaufort Community Center on September the 20th on a Saturday. So we'll have tickets and everything. That information will be distributed to the public over the next few weeks. So just be on the lookout for that. So do want to address some things that's been happening in and around the county. First of all, there's a bill, House Bill 767. I want to come out and say we're unequivocally against the bill. We understand the state legislature's intent that authored the bill. It was a bipartisan bill passed by both Democrats and Republicans. However, we feel any bill that's targeting just one particular county is not a good bill. I get the intent behind it because a lot of the public on both sides of the aisle, voters for both Democratic voters, Republican voters, independent voters, a lot of voters on both sides were upset with the decision to remove the superintendent without cause. And again, I understand the intent of the bill is to stop things like that from happening. But again, that's not unique to Gwinnett County. This is happening in other counties where boards are, running off good superintendents, despite the numbers and metrics, because there's some whatever personal beef or micromanaging that's not, they can't do, but because they do have the power to hire and fire staff, they are removing superintendents. So again, a bill like that's going to be put in place needs to be something that holds all school boards accountable, not just the ones in Gwinnett County. And definitely don't like the idea of targeting necessarily the salaries of board members, because again, those salaries already are pretty low as it is. So I think there was a better bill to be made, and we're definitely against that bill. And I'm hoping that elected officials will take the right course of action and reverse course on that bill. However, I do want to address Something else that's happening in the county, there was a school board meeting the same night as our general meeting. So members of our organization were unable to attend the last school board meeting because of that. However, some of our branch members were at the meeting, and we did get some reports back from some of our partners and other members of our branch of a very disturbing and I would say disrespectful situation. So I'm just going to play the video, and then myself as president and the second vice president, education chair John Cox, will hold our comments until after we share the video and some of the things that were said. Just a minute here.
Orchestrating the misplaced outrage and attack on 3 Black women by Black organizations who are ill-informed about the realities of school board meetings reflects your character. Yup, Will Banks did that. Ginning up that same community to threaten to sic cognia and legislators on board members because one man feels aggrieved. Yup, Will Banks did that. I could go on, but I'll stop there. You have proven yourself to be Will Banks 2.0. I bid you farewell in several of the languages that are spoken by our diverse student body.
Goodbye. 再见。我では。
So I want to stop it right there. So at that board meeting, you had a former president, I'm ashamed to say, of our branch, accusing the superintendent of orchestrating members and community members and voters, other organizations to show up to the emergency school board meeting back in January, and then also coercing those same people allegedly to come to a Friday meeting. That's a lie. Superintendent, I didn't even have the man's personal cell phone number until after he was removed, weeks after he was removed. So there was no coordination between him or any other community stakeholders, any of our partners that's part of the Divine Nine or any other organization, UES or any other organization. That's garbage. Those meetings were coordinated by Black leaders like myself and others that are in the community because we was concerned about what was happening with the board. The meeting caught us off guard because everybody got a notice on a Saturday afternoon that there was an emergency meeting called at, I think it was 5:30 or 5 o'clock, that was going to be going over the superintendent contract on Monday. So the notice went out on Saturday. I personally called a meeting with some of the stakeholders Sunday night, and we had discussion about showing up on Monday. Dr. Watts had nothing to do with that. I'm only addressing this issue because I don't like people that go to these meetings and lie, and that's lie. That's garbage. That never happened. The superintendent had nothing to do with that. I'm not going to play that whole video because it was disgusting. You had, once again, community people in our community that look like us who are being demeaning and disgusting. Again, I'm disappointed that the board did not check that, did not say that that's not how we treat somebody that's a part of our staff. Of course, they said nothing. That's disappointing. So again, you know, when we talk about building a collective or building a community or working together, that's something that we have to truly invest in. Right now, we have to build the we that we want to see. And right now, unfortunately, you know, there's been accusations that's been thrown around that, you know, our organization and others have been attacking the board. That's garbage. All I've seen over these last few weeks from people that's in that particular camp is attack the superintendent. Attacking the board is, I mean, unless you're telling the truth and holding people accountable to the voters, that's not an attack. That's what you call leadership. That's what you call holding your elected officials accountable. These are not celebrities. You're not supposed to be worshiping men. Okay. These are people that were elected by the voters, and anytime they make decisions that could be harmful to the voters, they owe us an explanation of why they're making those decisions. Just because they have the convenience, as one board member said, to do this, doesn't mean you should do it. Again, you should be meeting with your stakeholders, the people that put you in office, to have discussion about why you're doing what you're doing and explaining why it makes sense to do this. Because again, this costs the county, with the removal of the last superintendent, this has cost the county over $1.2 million. That doesn't include the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're possibly paying this hiring firm to look for yet a third superintendent in less than 4 years. So again, it's disappointing because again, we should be lifting each other up. This man already lost his job. For that person to get up there and make those disgusting statements, it just shows why that person is no longer with our organization. And I would like to say this is the same person that defended a bigot when he made a negative comment about John Lewis. And these are the people that unfortunately our board is listening to when making decisions about Gwinnett County. That's a problem. I had someone reach out to me personally that said, could organizations like ours still work with the board? Absolutely. But if people like that is at the center of how you govern, people that's divisive, people that will make ugly statements like that to our first Black superintendent in the county's history, and that's who you're listening to in terms of how to run the board, who you're bringing in, who you're getting rid of. I don't want nothing to do with anybody like that, because that man lost his job. Those comments that was made, and you can watch the full video yourself. I would not play that full video because it was a disgusting way, a dehumanizing way to treat anybody. So again, for all this junk that's going around about we're attacking or anybody's attacking the board, nobody's attacking the board. Telling the truth is not an attack. Telling the truth is just that, telling the truth. So let's not play identity politics when it comes to that. All I've seen since this incident has happened is people go on that mic and dehumanize our first Black superintendent. And for all intents and purposes, the data shows the schools was doing well. The data shows a lot of the Black and Hispanic schools were trending in the right direction. Academically, graduation rates, student achievement gaps between Black and white students, Black and brown students compared to white students. All this data was trending in the correct direction. Now, when I say things like that to people that's in that little clip that you all seen on that video, they tell me the numbers are fake. Well, if it's fake, then why are the board members smiling with these kids at every board meeting, taking pictures, celebrating their academic achievement if we say these numbers are fake? So again, which one is it? So I'm going to back off a little bit because this situation kind of, ticks me off because, all I've seen is just a constant barrage of attacks by people in that camp, attacking the superintendent when that's unnecessary. You got what you wanted. You convinced the board to remove him. And again, I'm willing to work with the members, all the members on the board, especially the ones that look like us. But again, if you're going to have divisive people at the center of your thought process with how you're going to run that board, then as an organization, I can unequivocally say we could never work together because those people are divisive within the community. They're outliers within the community. We would never work with people that go on stage and dehumanize other Black people like that. That'll never happen. So again, as long as those people are the people y'all that have y'all ear in terms of how y'all run that board, we're not good. No, we can never be a partner or never work with you in any capacity. And I'm going to turn it over now to our second vice president, education chair.
Good evening, good people, and thank you for your time. I want to take this opportunity to share some truths with you that might help you make the decision and understand what's going on. So President Paul said a mouthful, and I know his emotions running high because if you ever had a chance to meet Dr. Watts, at least for me, my lived experience is that he's a good guy. Nice guy, and one is very intentional about doing the work in the community to make sure the kids were well taken care of and given every opportunity to learn, to take advantage of some opportunities that were there due to neglect for over 15 years, and to raise them up, put policy and things in place that help raise them up. And the fruits of that labor were starting to show. We have 10 blue ribbon schools in the state of, nationally recognized blue ribbon schools in the state of Georgia, 5 of them in Gwinnett County. The superintendent recently, state superintendent of schools, recently visited us to acknowledge our literacy and mathematics improvements in the area. So schools like Berkmar and Shiloh, to name a couple, are being recognized now for literacy and mathematics by the state school superintendents. We have one of the best high schools in the country. GSMST is number 9 in the country. We have award-winning, nationally recognized faculty here. We have the highest graduation rates in the last decade or so. So things were improving in the right direction. And one of the things is the public is supposed to have input in the strategic planning for how the county is supposed to move. So it's basically it's basically the Board of Education, the superintendent of schools, and then the public is like the third estate. The stakeholders are the third estate. So when you're creating your strategic plan, 5-year plan, however long it's supposed to be, the public is supposed to be included in that. And the public was. I participated in the blueprint. I participated in the portrait of a graduate. I participated in course curriculum. We'll see, that's called GEMS projects. For 3 years, I was on the GEMS and had to help in developing courses and improving courses. And I wouldn't say developing. I think that's a little bit much. Let's say approving the courses and what needs to be talked about. And then the teachers went and did that, but so the public was allowed to be in and be involved. However, when you fire the curator and the administrator of your strategic plan, then you've changed the strategic plan, and the public was supposed to be involved in that, but the public wasn't involved in that. It was a unilateral decision. It was a promise being fulfilled, because on September 7th, when they extended his contract, Dr. Therese Morgan Johnson said that she had commitments from the new board members because she was upset that his contract was extended. She felt it should have been left to the new board members, but Mary Kay Murphy and some others said, no, this is our job and we won't be disenfranchised. We're not going to give up our responsibilities and pawn them off to the next board simply because that suits your interests. Well, she didn't say it that way, but that's what was said pretty much. And so there was a little bit of clearly difference of opinion that was there. But then Knudsen at the time said the reason why they extended his contract at that time, which was because he met the incentives that they made for him, and that his contract extension was overdue. So it was something that they had to do because it was promised and he met the incentives. So clearly, there were personal reasons for people not wanting him to remain or get in a contract extension. And as I said, on that date, Dr. Therese Morgan Johnson said she had already talked to the new members and secured their vote. And so we will revisit this in January as soon as they're sworn in. So that was a promise made. And then in January, of course, there was a promise kept. The problem with that is that it's an ethical violation, because each board member is supposed to act individually based on the data, and then with the focus on the students and supporting their constituents. So if you have a predetermined outcome before these people are even sworn in, and then the other question is, how are you being made available of information that's supposed to be executive session information that you can't talk to the public back? So that's why you couldn't speak to us, but you can talk to somebody else that wasn't sworn in order to persuade them before they come, and you're giving them information they're not supposed to have until they're sworn in. And then as for the person who's taking that information and acting on that information, you're also violating your oath to act independently and to do your things based on the data. You didn't have access to anything. So what did you make your decision on? So then you say, well, then that's a conspiracy. Or you can say that we're coerced. Either way, that's not the way it's supposed to be done. You never got a chance to understand what the process was and how things were supposed to be working. And you never got a chance to actually have a relationship with the man to find out whether or not things are going bad or good. There was just a Gallup report that said that this is one of the best places to work in the country. So all the things that they said, hey, or tried to say, well, it was this literacy rates for third graders. Well, most of us understand that COVID hit and that these third graders would have been a part of that COVID, maybe the last of the COVID kids that would, be seen at the, literacy rate at the third grade. But that's COVID, and they didn't say that, so that's disingenuous. And then you said, well, the literacy thing and the mathematics, the state superintendent came up to give us praise about, that's fake. So now the superintendent is in on this conspiracy to make them look bad. They're not doing anything to make themselves look bad. It's everybody else pointing a finger at them that's making them look bad. And everybody else is in on it for somehow. Somehow we're going after them because they're Black women. Ed and I are married to Black women. That makes no sense. And I haven't said anything about their agenda. It's not, that has nothing to do with that. It has to do with following policy, doing what's best for the kids, and being transparent like you said you would be. Rachel Stone and her Ballotpedia page, when people were voting for her, she said that she understood the role of a board member is to support the superintendent, to be transparent, to hold monthly meetings, to study and be informed. How could you have studied and been informed before you made that decision? You barely sworn in. So that's out the door. And then my parents always told me, birds of a feather flock together. So if you're hanging around somebody who was suspended from this particular organization for stealing, who has equipment that in the thousands of dollars that belongs to this organization and won't return it, probably so, who knows what happened to it, but won't return it. It's not good, people. And then this because we talk. If we were really going after people, we would be saying what we understand from private conversations, but we don't talk about that. We only use the words that you could hear publicly. We've never even violated, our private conversations with them. And we've had many private conversations with them because we didn't think that this was something that should happen. But along the way, you're telling us everything is good, even though with our eyes, we're concerned. That's why we're asking, hey, is everything okay? You tell us, oh, we're good. No, it's good. And then one Saturday while we're having a different meeting, we get an alert that there's a special called meeting in 2 days. And then after that didn't happen, maybe because of public response, maybe because somebody had cold feet, then you call the next special public meeting for 10 o'clock on a Friday morning. So you didn't want anybody to be there. And then you walked out on us on the Monday, refused to have a conversation, looked at all those people after they waited an hour and a half for you and just walked out. Sat down and said, I make a motion to adjourn. A motion was made and accepted and seconded, and then y'all walked out. So this idea of transparency and it's all being for the kids, no. Where I grew up, there was this thing called poverty pimps. And what a poverty pimp was somebody who made money off of poverty, off of problems in the community, always getting grants to solve problems, never solving them, but always talking about it, never solving them. So I don't know what the motivation was for removing Dr. Watts. Not because I didn't ask, but it just hasn't been said. Chairwoman Simmons said convenience. So for convenience, you're going to interrupt the strategic plan, 5-year plan. 18 months of those 5 years was COVID. It hasn't been quite 5 years yet. Things are moving in the right direction. And for convenience, you're going to give out $750,000 and start this process all over again. Possibly ruin, the board and the work that's been going on. And then in the summertime, because, they talked about Cognia. Cognia doesn't usually come during the school year because they don't interrupt the school year. They usually come after the school year. So while you think you're sitting pretty, that might not be the case. And be mindful, our organization is not calling for Cognia. It's the people. We hear that information all the time. We want an investigation. We want. We just recently put out a survey, because once again, we believe in not acting unilaterally. We believe in asking the public what they want. We can be emotional. We have an idea of what the violations are and how to write those violations up, by using the GSBA and the domain things. We can see where the violations are. We could write those up. That's not difficult for us. But we wouldn't do that unless the public said this is what we need to do. So we put out a survey to ask that. The minute we put the survey out, we were told that we were attacking Black women by asking a question, by trying to calm the temperature down, because we could have put the survey out when it was hot, but we tried to wait till everybody calmed down and emotions settled and then put it out, seeing if people really wanted this, because it's work. We'll do the work, but we want to make sure it's what you want before we do the work. And so that's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're obligated to do. That's what this organization is obligated to do. To ask, not unilaterally, to ask, and then to do what the community has asked us to do. So you campaign on being held accountable, and then when people try to do it, you want to claim some sort of gender discrimination and Black on Black crime. Where's the crime? It seems more of a crime to fire a man without cause, because you could. That's what convenience means. That seems more of a crime. The truth is gospel, not gossip, right? And you can't be attacked by the truth. People who feel some way because of the truth should really examine themselves. You don't really point out and say, hey, stop telling the truth, it hurts me. You're only telling on yourself that way. These are your words. None of the words that we used to delineate what happened are our words. They're yours. These are things that you've said out of your mouth so that they can't be questioned. These are actions that you took, steps you did, and then these are things that, evident in time, in real time. This is how it unfolded. This is what you said. And then we hold you accountable and you say, you're attacking me. That's not how that works. So we hope that you take the survey. Let us know what you want us to do. We won't be moved or by the attempt to redirect us or to distract us with that nonsense. People say what they want to say about that. We're going to do the work. You've seen us in the community since then. We're tackling many things behind the scene, and we're still doing all the work we're supposed to be doing, even though this stuff is going on. We're handling that and then some. And we're going to keep doing that, regardless of what's said. No one's going to shame us from doing the work. No one's going to tell us that the truth isn't the truth because it doesn't suit your purposes. Oh, you don't know. You don't know the truth. Well, the Georgia Department of Education puts out their findings. If you say that's not facts, then you can't have your own facts. Put your facts out there then. Tell us where to go for the facts that support what you're saying, because you don't see it. If you tell us what's going on, we would have reacted to that. If there was something to react to, we would have reacted to that. Same thing. I don't understand it. If you got the chance to have the majority, why wouldn't you use that majority to then run the programs that you want? The way it works is you're the boss. You tell him what you want. He uses his expertise to give it to you in a way that doesn't violate any of the rules and ethics of the position that he holds and what he's required to do by the state. That's why you put him there. So he runs the day in and out. So you could have left him there and just told him what you wanted him to do. And if he didn't do what you wanted him to do, you'd have cause. But you said no cause. So once again, that just doesn't make sense to us. The only thing that makes sense is that it follows the promise that you made. That's all you're left with us. And then you had the nerve. Well, I won't do that. I'll just say this. If I remember, we'll do it this way. When the lady who was clearly having a moment talked about Barack Obama as a terrorist and this and that, John McCain took the mic and said, no, man. No, man. We're not going to do that. And corrected her. If you were about truth and so forth and so on, then you would do the same. When people in your name are saying all kinds of falsehoods, right? And attacking people in the community for speaking up against you, you would say no. But no.
Or attacking your staff, attacking the superintendent.
You welcome that. There have been nights that I've been at the meetings and someone has called out a name because you're not supposed to say a person's name when you're making your statements. Somebody said a name, y'all know, no, you can't do that. That didn't happen. They call that man out by his name all night long. Belittling him and making all kinds of statements. It was awful. And you said nothing about it. So to me, it speaks to your character. Now, I work with people where our solution sets intersect, right? Because that's the way you should work. It's not personal for me. Wherever our solution sets intersect, that's where we can work together. Where they don't, we won't. It doesn't mean that your solution set is wrong. It just means that I have my own solution set I'm going to work with. We intersect, we can work together. We're not. It might be best to have two different solution sets and attack the problem from different angles. That could work. It doesn't always have to be either or. As President Paul likes to say, it can be both and. That's also an option. Here's another thing. If you're serious about solutions and getting things done, it doesn't have to take forever. I often hear people talk about all this multi-language learning stuff is and that's where we're falling short. And when I ask, what's the issue there? You know, one of the reasons why we have so many multi-language learners instead of other counties is because we offer a lot of immersive schools. We have the number one German teacher in the nation. We have the number one German teacher in the state, two different individuals. Our French, one of our schools has been acknowledged by the French ministry for being one of the best French immersion schools in the nation. So many different praises, but they make you think that we're a terrible school system. PBI schools of distinction. We have over 70 schools recognized for PBIS. Our discipline numbers are down. No one's going to be perfect. That just doesn't happen. But to say we're not doing well, what purpose does that serve? And like I said, if you're interested in solving problems, it said to me, well, our teachers don't speak the language. And so the kids are having problems getting the instruction. You give them a $400, $600 Chromebook. I don't know what it costs. But a translator costs $60 to $100. So if it's just about not being able to understand the language, you can put a translator in their ear and they can hear everything that's being said, and it can be translated into English. So if you really want to chart, or whatever language that they use. So if you really wanted to solve an issue, you can solve an issue like that. That's easy. But you're not really looking for solutions. You're looking for things to campaign on, raise money on, so forth and so on. At least some of the people I saw in that particular group. Yeah. If you're about solutions, then do the work. Be about the work. Celebrate the work. What's this other stuff? I don't understand that. And we asked you, explain it to us so we can understand. So again, I won't belabor the point. I don't want to run the time over. I just want you to know, hey, look, we got a survey out. Fill out the survey. Let us know what you want us to do, and we'll do that. Thank you for your time. And also, I want you to know, Ed and I, we brothers from another mother, but we don't look alike. So I'm John Cox. He's President Paul. So when you'll see us in the street, please, most of the time, if I'm representing the NAACP, I got a jacket on that says my name on it. So I respect the fact that, you guys see us and see us as one, because we rock together like that, but we're different people. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So as we bring this thing to a close, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, and everybody that will watch. I will go ahead and put the ticker on. Sorry, I didn't do that earlier for the survey. So if you go to the link at the bottom of the screen, please definitely take the survey. We want to hear from the community. This is just not for NAACP members. This is for the general public to take the survey on the school board, because we want your feedback. We will never make decisions as an organization just because we have the convenience to do so. We will always seek public input from not only our members, but other stakeholders and partners when we make decisions that will have impact on our community. And again, I want to definitely thank everybody for tuning in. Again, like I said, with everything happening in the White House, we need elected officials that are looking to work together and not be partnering or working with members in our community that even the NAACP has kicked out because of their divisive nature internally within our organization. And again, as I said to a good friend that reached out to me about being willing to work with the board, I'm willing to work with all the board members, all 5 of them. I know the comments were related to the 3 that was responsible for removing Dr. Watts. And even through all of this, I'm still always willing to work with them. But again, if the people at the center of their thought process is going to have influence on how they operate as a board, if that group that went up there and dehumanized our first African-American superintendent, is that that's a little small subset group is going to be the group that's going to be at the center of their ideology in terms of how they operate as a board, then I'm out, because those people are divisive in nature. Those people have been harmful to our organization. At least the ones that used to be the president of our organization have been harmful to the people inside of our organization. So no, absolutely not. Not when those are people that our national office don't even allow them to be in any space or setting that we in, because one of them is suspended from our organization. So again, if those are the people that they're going to be listening to, then absolutely not, because those people are people that caused our organization to be isolated and not have partners and other faith-based groups to be linked with us. Those relationships are currently being rebuilt and reorganized, and more groups are looking to work with us, since we don't have those type of divisive people in our organization. And our national office did not kick them out of our organization for elected officials on the school board to be welcoming them in, and not only welcoming them in, but having heavy influence over how they operate as a school board. So if those are the people that's going to be at the center with how they operate as a board, then no, the NAACP would definitely not be willing to work with those said board members because we didn't, as an organization, put those people out only to have the board bring them back in and have them have influence on how they operate, because we've already seen in this very short period of time where we at now. Again, you having a predominantly Black board, remove the first Black superintendent of our county, or of GCPS, shall I say, not of the county, but of GCPS, on the eve of Black History Month, and then have the nerve to say, we need to be standing up against all these assaults on DEI when you're basically getting rid of the first Black superintendent in GCPS history, despite all the accolades you all continue to celebrate night after night after night at every board meeting. We celebrate all these academic achievements, and you remove him without cause, without any explanation to the voters. So again, I won't go on. We're going to keep fighting as an organization. We're going to keep standing up for social justice. We're going to look for accountability in the death of the Lewis brothers. And we hope GBI does the right thing. And we're going to keep standing up for all communities, but specifically our Black community, when it comes to holding elected officials accountable. Again, holding you accountable and asking you to give us answers when you make decisions that have an impact on our community. That's not an attack at all. Accountability and transparency and asking for those things are not an attack. And just because you represent our community in terms of race or skin color doesn't mean you escape accountability because of that. And it don't matter if you're the school board, the county commissioner, the DA, the sheriff's office, the state rep, governor, lieutenant governor, congressional representative, United States Senate. None of those things matter what position you hold. When you make decisions that will be harmful to our community, we want answers. And when you ignore us or walk out on us, when we show up to these meetings, don't even acknowledge we there, like what was done at the emergency board meeting on Monday evening, that's a problem, because that shows the community at large that you're not beholden to the people that elected you. You're beholden to this small subset of group that goes into school board meetings and attacks a superintendent, even though that's the person you want to get rid of. He's gone, but you still felt like you had to dance on this man's grave, and that was out of bounds. So no, I can't work with people that listen to people like that. So that being said, y'all have a good night. Hope to see you all at our upcoming Thursday Founders Day, and we're gonna keep fighting for social justice here in Gwinnett County. Y'all have a great night.